This is short story. Step forward. Enjoy it. I am a human being. My name and surname are Cantemir Filet, born Stampfner, but more on that later. I came into the world in 2016 in the town of Yalgender, Tamarinsky district. I grew up in a family. My father was an engineer designing drones, my mother a physics lecturer. At the age of 4, I fell seriously ill with coronavirus, but survived, and later even grew stronger, largely thanks to attending various sports clubs, from karate and jeet kune to basketball and swimming. Under my parents' attentive guidance, I also studied chess, applied mechanics, electronics, and theoretical physics. As should be clear from all this, Cantemir simply had no time to be an ordinary child. Why do I speak of myself in the third person? A habit picked up from my father, Oleg. From him, too, came my love of reading fiction by the light of a bedside lamp and watching unpopular TV series. From my mother, Iliyas, I inherited the ability to calmly listen to another person's point of view and only then begin to criticize, as well as a love for the songs of Julie London. When I turned 15, mass persecutions and harassment began. My parents had to change their documents, hence the new surname. They also cut off contact with part of their intellectual circle. This later affected my father quite noticeably. He became more withdrawn and pensive. The amount of work they had also decreased. On the other hand, they had more time for me. Even before that, they had tried to raise their only son through a careful balance of discipline and encouragement. Before I even started school, I had tried so many activities that when classmates appeared at the age of 7, they regarded me simultaneously as a show-off prodigy and an Olympic hero. Step by step, I grew, developed, and pushed forward. But toward what? The question of purpose did not arise immediately. Only with puberty did I begin to consciously wonder why I needed all this knowledge and skill. I asked my parents, but they said that time would show the way. As for me, I could not yet make out that yellow brick road through the fog of life. Reflection on the work of a lifetime was probably the only factor that slowed my self-development. Physically, I was strong. I overcame difficulties with persistence, first after illness, and later in communication with people. By the way, have you noticed how insistently we are all told to step somewhere? It starts in early childhood. Mom and dad smile and say, "Come on, son, step with your right foot, step with your left. Good boy. Step forward some more. Let's walk along the crib and now on your own." Then it continues. Go on, step to school for knowledge, to the store for bread, to another club, come on, son, step already across the chessboard, come on. Filet, step into the exam, step away from here. Freak, you're in the wrong neighborhood, come on. Idiot, step up and take your bouquet of flowers, step forward, step back, left, right, even upside down or feet first. That walking brought me, at 17, to apartment 40 in the neighboring entrance. I rang the bell. Yulia came out onto the landing and, surprised, asked what I wanted. We were classmates, and I had been in love with her since the 5th grade. She knew it, everyone knew it. Even her parents used to joke about it when I came over. It embarrassed me, but over time, everyone grew used to the situation. Then she started dating other guys. That hurt. I stopped coming to see her and kept my distance for a whole year. But then I couldn't take it anymore and came by. She was stunningly beautiful. But more importantly, there was a mysterious spark glowing inside her. One that only I could see beneath the glamorous image. With me, she was different. Not a brazen diva, but an intellectual with an amazing sense of humor, a lover of good books and music. I was always amazed at why she tried to present a bright, ornate version of herself that wasn't real, when in truth she was entirely different, cool and charming. So that day, right there on the stair landing, I told her all of this. And I told her about my feelings. I spoke of dreams, of plans for the future, eager to share everything with her. It had all boiled over inside me. And I thought I looked impressive in that moment, and that Yulia, not the glamorous empty shell, but the real one, would appreciate such a gesture. That's what I thought, naive little human. Almost a thing, almost a toy in other people's hands. Of course, she politely refused any further communication. No spark of warmth flared in her blue eyes as she spoke sincere, yet painfully sharp and hurtful words. I was 17. What else did you expect? My plans for our joint admission to university collapsed. But at that very moment, when the door slammed shut behind me and I was left alone on the landing of the stuffy stairwell, new thoughts were born. First, I thought that I hated all the girls in the world. Then I decided I would give up communicating with them. Then I accepted the idea that I would remain alone forever. As I was going down from the 5th floor, I ran into a guy heading upstairs. He was a kid from our parallel class, and with that smug grin of his, he could only be going to one apartment. I remember clenching my teeth in fists and saying to him, "You can't go to her, and why's that?" He smirked, which only made me angrier. I understood perfectly well why he was going up to Yulia's place. Her parents weren't home, her brother was at school, the apartment was entirely at their disposal. That thought made me nauseous, and only righteous anger kept me from hysteria. But when he said that I had long since sickened Yulia with my pink snot, the anger instantly turned into a veil of rage. I punched the insolent bastard with such force that he slammed into the wall. There was so much despair, pain, disappointment, and fury in that blow that when it all spilled out, I immediately felt lighter. But the humiliated guy boiled over in response. He smashed me in the jaw, and I didn't even resist, mesmerized by my new sensations. Eventually, though, the veil lifted and I had to defend myself, attacking in return. He hit me, and I hit back. Then we started shouting at each other and rolling across the concrete floor. I don't remember what happened next, but in the end I found myself standing in front of Yulia, who had come downstairs and was scolding me while calming him. Eventually I was verbally trampled and stepped out into the fresh autumn air. But as you recall, I did feel better. And so later that day, I firmly decided that I wanted to close myself off from this world. And I did so through study. I drew up a plan for developing my life, my adult life, one that excluded the nerve-wracking experiences I had endured. Only study, only cultivation of spirit and intellect. No distractions. First, I had to choose a direction. I focused on my father's specialty, the development of technologies for various flying machines. And from that moment, my path began. Yes, I chose it. A simple decision for a simple little human. But I was glad to be able to withdraw from the bustle of the surrounding world, especially from the constant need to look for someone who was supposed to be near me, to sigh over me, to think about me and love me, and whom I, in turn, was supposed to love. My parents were absorbed in their own affairs as well. They hardly noticed how I spent entire days after school in open-format laboratories, demonstration factories, or junkyards filled with decommissioned drones. There I scavenged parts and dragged them home, hoping to assemble something from them, then reflash it with new software. When I wasn't outside, I sat at my laptop and programmed. I did the same during lessons. Many school subjects and disciplines were abandoned in favor of writing code or working with AI on a pocket computer. By the time I finished school, at 18, I had created my first drone. Its uniqueness lay in its complete autonomy. It was controlled by an artificial intelligence I had trained to perform civilian tasks. The drone knew exactly when it needed to recharge, conducted several flights a day for aerial photography, terrain scanning, and monitoring the city. I demonstrated the invention to my father. He offered a few comments and was impressed. My mother, however, could not hide her disappointment. Because of my obsession, I had failed to graduate with honors, as my parents had. Nevertheless, I assured them that I would forego university and look for work. Dad nodded in understanding. Mom protested a little, but eventually agreed that this would be more productive. She urged my father to offer me a position at the company where he worked. I refused, And rightly so, because a month after my drone presentation at a local talent competition, I was contacted by a firm designing AI-based technology. It was a competitor of my father's company. His worked on government contracts, this one took private orders. I joined them and readily immersed myself in development, sometimes deliberately not going home and sleeping in the lab. My efforts were noticed by management, and by 19 I had crossed the line between a mid-level specialist and a senior. The ambitious CEO said that in just half a year he would be ready to appoint me head of the entire department. But 3 months later, an announcement rang out across the country. With sorrow and resolve, I announced that our state is entering a conflict involving nations friendly to us. We must defend peace in the border territories and prevent the spread of violence. We will restore peace and order for the glory of our children. So spoke our president. And thus began that strange war. I was drafted a month after the intervention began, sent to a neighboring region. First, the thought came to flee to the southern countries, like a few of my acquaintances had done. But where would I go? My parents were here, my work was here, and it all felt strange. Submit to the system. At the moment I received the draft notice, of course, I wanted to rebel. Have all your soldiers run out, and now you're drafting everyone, even scientists. How can I abandon my work now? We're on the verge of creating innovations ahead of their time, and here neither the company management's protection nor my parents' connections helped. The army would not release me. At first, my mother came to terms with it. I noticed one day that she began packing my things for the journey, lamenting that since I had to go, it was better to prepare in advance. My father remained in silent pause, frowning more than usual. When I arrived at the military enlistment office, I was taken aside by the major responsible for mobilization. He said he was willing to make a small concession. To keep me in the rear, not in headquarters, but not on the front line slaughter either, somewhere in between, reasonably safe, so I could quietly serve my required time and return to work. I thought then, so the protection did work, just not at full strength. Of course, I agreed. I chose the lesser evil. At least I was given the illusion of choice. Others probably didn't even have that. When I left, my mother fussed, saying, "Well, if they're sending you, then you must go." It was strange to see such submission from an enlightened physics professor, verbally criticizing nearly every socio-political decision of the state in her own kitchen. I briefly replied, mentally trying to distance myself from the situation, convincing myself that what lay ahead was merely a brief and insignificant stage that would not affect my work or my carefully arranged routine and lifestyle. My father said goodbye, telling me not to get into trouble. I wasn't angry at my parents. How could I be? They're my parents. I love them, and why be angry when you can just say farewell? Then came a long redeployment of part of the troops abroad. I ended up in the mobile headquarters of a rather nervous colonel. For 3 months, I was practically his secretary for the battalion's technical supply. Then the situation sharply worsened. The enemy received advanced weapons from their allies and even more troops. The situation became critical. All forces were engaged. The main army, reserves, contract soldiers, volunteers. My agreement was canceled. Nobody spoke to me. I was simply sent to the front like 500,000 other young men. Into the very heart of the fire, into a high-tech slaughter. It was there, on Wednesday, August 14th, that I met my platoon and our new commander, the phlegmatic Lieutenant Arsharif. How strange this world is. A simple thing. Agree with your neighbors on peaceful coexistence and joint activity. But no, somehow it's always necessary to weave complications where none are needed. Creating an autonomous drone with billions of artificial neurons, with synapses flashing like lightning in a self-learning AI, and training that AI agent. Now that's genuinely complex. But agreements with neighbors? Easier than easy, at least. That's how it seemed to me when my comrades and I prepared for the next sortie along the left flank of the combat front. Our group was interesting, to say the least. A constantly joking lieutenant with a stone face, a pair of twin brothers from Asia, two others barely out of school, me, a little older than them, a scientist always striving to become a thing in itself, a fat guy always trying to rush forward, and three seasoned veterans who had already survived 2 wars. I joined last, so I discovered that most of the platoon was already sleeping in the ground, and those who survived were the lucky ones. Death has only just begun stitching our wooden Macintoshes, the lieutenant remarked phlegmatically. Everything is strange, I thought every morning, waking up either from explosions near the leaning houses of the village where we were stationed, from the commander's voice, or from the jokes of my fellow soldiers. Days passed, sorties became more frequent, as did the nervous pulse in my brain. It all should be simple. Enemy ahead, homeland behind. Go, shoot, clear, but no. Complicated, wrong, and I wanted it simpler with drones. Complexity is proper here, on the frontier of lost souls. It isn't. What a cruel irony, I thought. I created drones to later run from them and hide among the underbrush and ruins. One day I asked which devices we launch and which the enemy uses. Lieutenant Arsharif said it didn't matter. One of the twins agreed. The fat guy said we use government procurement, while they use private contractors. Just as I thought 2 days later, I watched a drone drop a bomb on a neighboring house where the fat guy was casting. It exploded him. I almost cried, staring at the clear sky where the flying machine disappeared. For some reason, as I shifted my gaze from the fat guy's body to the receding point, I thought. Not autonomous operator controlled the tilt in the wind, and the desire to correct it manually was visible. That same day on a sortie, I killed a person for the first time. I was shaking. Thoughts were jumbled. I didn't know what I had done right or wrong. There was no complexity of code here, but also no desired simplicity. There was only death. Lieutenant Arsharif treated me to vodka that night and told me not to dwell on what I had experienced during the day. We talked often. A reasonable man. We spoke about civilian life, the absurdity of various things, for example, war. Our views aligned. Conversations flowed, but hierarchy remained. He agreed with my retreat into myself to preserve my sanity and focus on work. I understood his desire to maintain order and an unyielding spirit, strangely mixed with the philosophy of a phlegmatic. 3 days later, orders came for relocation. Arsharif gathered us for instructions. Listen up, guys. It's morning. By 5 in the evening, we must be 10 kilometers northwest, in a village called Tamolga, or Tamolga anyway. It's right here. He demonstrated the map and pointed to the coordinates. Our drones conducted an airstrike. Enemy drones responded. It's time for the sweep. It's important to secure positions first, before the enemy does. We're deploying along this central street, in 3 houses. One on the left, one across the road, and one at the nearest intersection. He pointed out the necessary locations on the map. Lieutenant, one of the twins interjected, will equipment be provided for our movement? We'll manage, Corporal. All equipment is currently engaged to the north, active fighting there. As if we don't have active ones. We'll go on our own unless, of course, you, Corporal, want to announce your arrival to the enemy in advance and get a sniper bullet, a plasma shot, or a drone bomb in your head. The lieutenant first glanced at his deputy, then looked over all of us. Of course, there were no objections. Half an hour later, we set off north along the road. Come on, gentlemen, march along the road. A simple order for such simple soldiers. The lieutenant glanced at me and nodded. Go ahead, Filet, step, step. And we went, step by step, toward hell, first walking, then running with all our gear. The weather was favorable. Arsharif's jokes, shouted while running with that same serious face, added to the surreal atmosphere. Reinforcing it was the decadent landscape of homes torn apart by explosions, roads, and undergrowth. By evening, as agreed, we reached the new deployment point and settled in. I took a house at the intersection with one of the seasoned soldiers. Soon Arshriff joined us, and the veteran went out for a smoke. The lieutenant inquired about the situation and announced that there would be a general assembly in 10 minutes, as we were awaiting the arrival of enemy forces. For now, a brief smoke break. Arshriff exhaled and pulled out chewing gum. A conversation started again, this time about the inevitable conclusion of this conflict. I shared my hopes of returning to normal life, and he countered that normalcy would never be the same. Again, I stressed that this entire war was nothing but a mockery of humanity, an inability to negotiate, and sheer absurdity. To me, I continued, nothing is more absurd than war and death in war except, perhaps, sex. Imagine all those positions. As for me, the lieutenant responded, nothing is more absurd than life itself. You grow, study, work, then you're drafted, and you have to listen to a youngster reason about the absurdity of sex. He smiled broadly for the first time in my memory. Violet, you think like a virgin. Well, I won't tell anyone in half an hour. We're going into battle. I don't want the guys to die laughing before the fight. I didn't get offended or angry, especially after he mentioned that he knew certain places in civilian life that I might find interesting. He promised to accompany me on a visit to the temples of love. I didn't mind such a distraction after the horrors of war. I actually liked the change in his mood. The commander seemed more cheerful, and at the final assembly before the battle, he smiled more often and even laughed. Then the enemies arrived in the village, and the firefight began. And it so happened that Lieutenant Arshriff never got to introduce me to that very place in civilian life. He died first. It seemed absurd, our commander standing there, smirking, calling us to battle, and suddenly his laughter cut off, and he slumped to the ground. Not thrown aside like in action movies, but collapsing, gasping as if the air had been sucked out all at once, like a character model in a computer game developed by some neighborhood kid. It's strange, watching death and charging forward, shooting, expecting that any moment it could hit you too. Yes, eventually it hit me. I was lying there, nothing, not afraid, not in pain. I asked the medic, one of the twin brothers, why I didn't feel pain. He said he had administered a strong dose of morphine. I tried to inspect myself. They wouldn't let me. I became nervous. Then a strange thought came. Was I even useful? My parents are proud of me. I'm an example to colleagues, but the thought is strange, foolish. Then another, making me laugh. The lieutenant was right. Life is as absurd as death, but the most absurd of all is sex. That's terrifying. Dying isn't scary, but bringing a girl to the right condition. But my mind was already chaos. As if the synapses had lost their way, thought replaced thought, some kaleidoscope of agony. I need to check my gear. I jerk my hands convulsively, then my parents appear before my eyes. I squint, cry, then I realize I'm moaning. Mom, Mom. I also see the medic trying to find where the bullet entered my body. There's a lot of blood, but he can't see the entry point because of the gear. He fusses, gets nervous. I am no longer nervous. I am a simple thing that has walked to its limit. Moreover, I already begin to feel the morphine letting go of me. Soon it will release me completely. Pain will come, and then